every leader needs a good coach and or therapist by their side, and likely a good operator who is empathetic to that, because that is a skill set and that is a gift. However, it is the visionary's job to be thinking in terms of the time horizon of 1, 3, 5, 10 years down the road. If we're not doing that, we're not going to innovate, we're not going to grow, we're not going to scale.
What's up, agency owners? Jason Swenk here with another episode of the Smart Agency Masterclass podcast for the digital agency owner that wants to grow and scale faster. And on today's episode, I'm going to talk with a COO who's going to talk about really kind of holding your team accountable and really taking a lot of the pressure off that we have as an agency owner off our shoulders and putting it on our team and just creating a company that can scale a lot faster. So let's go ahead and jump into the episode. Hey, Zach, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much, Jason. Great to be with you today.
Yeah, man, excited to have you on. So you've been a COO for many, many, many years, and you've managed teams and managed people. What has been a huge challenge for operators that you've faced in the past?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest obstacles, is clarity and delegation and how to hold people accountable. We know that starts with trust, but oftentimes when we feel as leaders this huge weight and burden of carrying so much on our shoulders, we think like we just need to get more people on the team. We need to delegate more. Oftentimes that comes down to us, right? How are we delegating? How are we holding people accountable? How are we driving clarity? It's a huge obstacle because we become our own ceiling in the growth of our agency.
So how do you know? Because I've seen this, I've heard it, I've even experienced it, right? Like when we get personally busy and we have all this stuff on our shoulders, and we go, we need to hire more, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're saying it's not to hire more. What's the solution?
Yeah, I think that's always the default place that we go to, right? We just need to hire more people and to get more done. And oftentimes, I think if we really were to examine the capacity of our current team, the capacity of those around us, there probably is capacity there, and there probably is a delegation problem. There probably is a lack of clarity problem. And oftentimes, we believe this lie. It is just easier for us to do something ourselves than to ask someone else to do it because I can get this done a lot quicker. But then we multiply that, times 20, times 50, whatever the number, and exponentially our time is going to all of these things that really other people could be doing. It's in other people's genius, but we're doing it because we've believed that fallacy of just easier to do it ourselves. Because it'll get done right, than to delegate to other people and hold them accountable to doing it.
I've experienced it where it's kind of like you get to that point is like you were saying, it's easier for me just to go do it, right? It'd take me 15 minutes, but it'd take me an hour to explain it to you. And whenever I kind of get into that wrong of thinking, I kind of got to remind myself, hey, video record yourself doing this, like I'm training someone.
Yes.
And create something there. And then also too, I think a lot of times what we need to do as entrepreneurs and agency owners is like audit our time and look back at the past 2 weeks. Like one of my friends, Dan, did a workshop for our agency mastery mastermind. And he said, look, take a screenshot of your past 2 weeks and really kind of highlight, green, yellow, and red. Red means took a ton of energy, took a ton of energy from me. Yellow means I probably shouldn't be doing it. And green was like, hey, this gives me a lot of, satisfaction, and we should keep doing that. And what you'll see is that you're doing a ton of $10 and $100 tasks that anybody else should be doing. So why the hell are we doing it? What else are you seeing around this?
Yeah, I think that is a great tool and methodology for really capturing what are the things that we need to delegate off to other people, because Ultimately, it's, a bunch of those 15-minute tasks that add up to 10, 15 hours. And when you think about what is the best and highest use of your skills and abilities as an entrepreneur, as a leader, likely it's not doing a bunch of those 15-minute tasks. And so I think in addition to, and I love that exercise, right, of what brings us energy, what sort of maybe neutral, drains a little bit, and what's sort of sucking the life and joy out of our leadership lives. I mean, we know through PET imaging now that all of us function in that way. And when we are using our skills and abilities in areas, and Patrick Lencioni did a lot of this work through Working Genius, but our working frustrations, we're using a ton of mental energy. And in psychology, we call that dithering, right? Like we're spinning our wheels and we're not going anywhere. A bunch of energy is being spent. And so when we are lacking joy, energy, motivation, fulfillment in our job, our company is going to reflect that. Our culture is going to reflect that. And I think there is a great opportunity, because likely there are people on your team that where you have working frustrations, where this task, this thing is sucking the joy and life out of you. It brings them joy. It brings them energy. And sometimes we tell ourselves the story that like no one likes doing this, so we feel guilty and we don't give it to anybody. But I guarantee you, there are people who love doing that, and the things that you love doing suck the life and joy out of them. So I think really finding, and that requires a lot of self-awareness, right? That requires a lot of introspection and understanding for ourselves to really know who we are, what does bring that joy and fulfillment in our lives and our jobs, and to know that about our team members as well. So that way we are delegating, we're assigning tasks and responsibilities wisely.
Yeah, I remember that very vividly. I remember bringing on and I hired a new project manager. I said, look, do this job for a year. You do it really well, we're going to promote you, because what you're doing right now sucks. Like, because I hated project management. And they were like,
Mhm.
actually, I love doing this stuff. I'm like, really?
Yeah.
And that was the first time I realized, I was like, wow, there are people that are very different than me and like different things. And I was like, this is probably a perfect hire, because they love doing this and they want to stay here versus,
Mhm.
get up to replace me as a job. The other thing too, I realized was when we're looking to scaling a business, I think a lot of times we're trying to scale it we're trying to maintain. Like there's a lot of agencies right now that are just trying to maintain. And if you're out there going
Right.
like, oh, the market sucks, I'm watching the news and all this kind of stuff, and you're just trying to maintain, you're going to lose. Or even if you're
Right.
trying to double your business, you're probably going to lose, because there's millions of options that you have to do out there. But if you think about, how do I 20x the business? Well, there's probably one or two things that you probably need to do, that you need to focus on. And that's how kind of I started looking at when we started having a lot of scale, is like, what are those things that only I can do? And then kind of
Mhm.
delegate all the other outcomes. And like, I think what you were saying too, I guess in the show is like, and I know you're in a rather new business too. So most people, when they start a newer business, they don't have a clear direction of where they're going. Right. And you probably see
Mhm.
this with a lot of your clients. And then
Right.
their team doesn't know how to make decisions, but they're making decisions based on what's better for them rather than what's the company, because they have no clue where the damn company's going.
Sure.
Like, do you see that
Right.
too?
Yeah, when there's lack of clarity, internally, if we believe people are doing their best, okay, great, awesome. The world's a better place, I think, when we can work from that assumption. But people are doing their best, but they have no clarity on where we're going. So everyone, in their own eyes, is just doing what they think is right. They're doing what they think is strategically best or best for today. Maybe they're not even thinking strategically. And so that's where we have huge lack of alignment, right? And so we've got all of these different cars going in all different directions, and we have no cohesion. If we're in a boat together, everyone's trying to row in a different direction, row backwards, whatever. There's no power behind where we can go together, because as a leader, and maybe again, it's because of lack of focus, lack of time. We've not charted out the course and vision of what's that destination, where are we going, why are we going there, and how are we going to get there. So everyone's just sort of rowing in whatever direction they see is best.
How often, so when you were operating as the operating officer, that's a different mentality than kind of that visionary, right? Like
Right.
I was always kind of like, oh, squirrel, rabbit, like all over the place, right? Like I needed people like you to kind of, Jason, tell me what's the focus, and then let's go do it, right? And you
Yes.
go execute. So most people that listen to the show are like me, kind of rabbits, squirrels, groundhogs, all over the place, right?
Yeah.
How can you get us more focused?
Well, I think every leader needs a good coach and or therapist by their side, and likely a good operator who is, I think, empathetic to that, because that is a skill set and that is a gift. And at the same time, when you are leading a company, you have the responsibility of keeping the company focused. However, it is the visionary's job to be thinking in terms of the time horizon of 1, 3, 5, 10 years down the road. If we're not doing that, we're not going to innovate, we're not going to grow, we're not going to scale. And like you said, if we're just shooting to maintain, we're going to die. Healthy things always are growing. So the operator's job, the coach's job is really to come in and say, what's best now? It's okay for you to operate over here and think about the squirrels. And at the same time, we have to keep things in alignment. And so there has to be that discernment. And I think at the core of that is healthy relationship, healthy trust, to say, what is it that we're going to pursue right now? How do we align people behind this? And how do we have a working strategy so that it's not just the idea of the day or the idea of the week? And I mean, I worked for those kind of leaders and would oftentimes say, like, okay, I hear what you're saying. Is this something that you're wanting to do right now? Because if we say yes to this, we have to say no to these other things that we've said are important. So if this is important enough, we can absolutely say yes to that. And that requires a lot of health in the relationship to be able to do that. But we can't, if you're saying yes to something, you're always saying no to something else. So we have to get clear on what that is.
I like that you kind of gave them the ultimatum is like, look, we can do this, but it's going to adjust this, and this. And a lot of times
Right.
when I had my operators come back to me on that, I'd be like, oh, okay, well, right. Like just keep going down this path. And then
But most just say no, and then they frustrate the visionary. They're like, visionaries, like, they're always saying no to everything. I can't get anything done. I can't take, no, we can absolutely say yes to things. But if we do, we're always saying no to something else, right?
Yeah.
So we have to make that choice.
Yeah. Is there anything I didn't ask you around making sure that we're getting our teams in alignment and we're going in one direction, right? Like everyone's rowing in the right direction. Is there anything I didn't ask you that you think the listeners are like saying, oh, what about this?
Well, I think when it comes to rowing in the same direction, when it comes to pursuing the right and same things as a company executing in that direction, I think one of the things that always comes up is when you're holding people accountable, how do you do that? And how do I skill myself up as a leader to holding, like, what does accountability look like? And yes, it looks like clarity, right? People have to have deep clarity in their roles, understanding what their contribution is. Like you said, we are casting vision on outcomes. I'm going to trust you to do the job, that you have the skills and develop and invest in you in that way, of course. But in accountability, in any relationship, the ability, the wherewithal to have hard conversations has to be a skill that we are developing. The more a leader is willing to hold their team accountable, the less they have to do it, the more the team holds one another accountable. And that comes by skilling up and having hard conversations. You said you would do this, it didn't get done. What's going on? The story I'm telling myself, help me understand what's going on here. And I think we just generally avoid those conversations. We avoid those topics because they make us uncomfortable. Then we have lack of accountability because we can't have the hard conversations, and culture always defaults to the worst behavior that we allow as the leader on the team.
Yeah. And you put it off, you put it off, you put it off. It's kind of like you're dating a girl and you forget her name. And it goes one date, two dates. And it's like, dude, I passed the point of no go. Like, I can't say, what the heck is his name? Like, I need to go find someone to introduce. It actually did happen
Yeah,
to me too. It's like, I need one of
terrible.
my
That's
friends to come up
terrible.
and be like, yeah, this is Brian. And then,
Oh my gosh.
then she would never say her name. I'm like, and I think she knew it too.
Well, good for her for dumping you on that
That's
one.
right.
But you're right. Like, same thing. We avoid it and we hope it's just going to go away.
Mhm.
And it will not. People don't get hints. Hard things don't just resolve themselves on their own.
Yeah. Got to rip off the Band-Aid soon before it really kind of starts getting too big. And then it's just, then you
Absolutely.
can't. And then you're kind
Right.
of screwed. So, Zach, this has been amazing. Thanks so much for coming on the show. If you guys enjoyed this episode, make sure you subscribe, make sure you comment. And also, we have a free masterclass that we just put out. And if you want to know the 4 triggers for really creating an avalanche of clients and prospects banging down your door, make sure you go to agencymastery360.com/attract. That's agencymastery360.com/attract. And get those 4 triggers. It's 4 videos totally for free. It's a cool masterclass we put out there. And until next time, have a swank day.